I was at a service a lot like this not too many years ago. And there was this woman, and she was in the balcony of the church, and she was singing the Christmas carols. She knew them, but her heart wasn't in it. It wasn't in it. She'd had a really hard year, and I knew her story. And as I was watching her sit down for the sermon, I got to see this incredibly poignant moment. See, her daughter had been away for Christmas for the first time ever. And as she sat down, her daughter appeared, walked down the stairs of the balcony, got close to her mother, leaned down and touched her knee and whispered, "Merry Christmas." Merry Christmas. Tonight is the night where we celebrate that the God who was far came near to us, and he knows your longing. He knows the kind of year you've had. He knows your deepest needs, and he comes close to you at Christmas, and he says, "Merry Christmas." This is the night of nights. 2,000 years ago, a young girl was about to give birth to a baby that changed everything. The story was almost unbelievable. Angels had to explain it. Shepherds had to go and see it. And the wise men, they saw a star and they ended up there. This was not the way that you would have written the script, but the way it turned out, it made the Christmas story even more credible, even more compelling. No one would have written the script exactly like it went down. Now, we would have expected that Jesus, God's only son, when he came into the world, would have come in big and obvious. But not this time. We would have expected that CNN and Fox would have covered it both. We would have expected that at least it would have been a little bit more like the lights on Sunset here in Bethlehem. Big, obvious. But that wasn't the case. On that first Christmas, God's glory showed up with a whisper and the cry of a little baby. You know, before Jesus was born, God always showed up big, like in the burning bush or in the cloud or a larger-than-life miracle, and people always noticed. But not this time. Think about the way that world leaders usually make their entrances into places. You got security details and limousines and a lot of fuss. I read recently that Queen Elizabeth, on her last visit to the United States, she brought so much stuff with her. She brought 4,000 pounds of luggage. I mean, can you imagine the upcharge, right? 2 outfits for every occasion. A mourning outfit in case someone died. 40 pints of plasma. And, get this, white kid leather toilet seat covers. Don't go there, right? She brought her hairdresser, 2 valets, and a host of other attendants. But God, when he came into the world, he brought nothing. Nothing. And ever since that Christmas night, this night has been different. When you leave tonight, if you were to go downtown Bethlehem and get on Main Street, you would see a reminder of what happened on Christmas Eve in 1741. On top of Hotel Bethlehem, tonight you'll only see Bethlehem, shining to remind us all that Count Zinzendorf named the town of Bethlehem with the group of Moravian settlers on that Christmas Eve. In 1968, 50 years ago, Apollo 8 astronauts Frank Borman and Jim Lovell and William Anders became the first humans to circle the moon. And before that night, no one had seen the Earth from so far away. The mission and, of course, the photo they took was historic. They didn't plan this shot. In fact, they kind of had to scramble to get their one-color camera to take this now famous picture. Earth looked so small. Earth looked so vulnerable. In need of the very thing that we're celebrating tonight, at Christmas. In 1914, there was a war raging on Christmas Eve, and in the trenches, an English soldier heard something that he had never heard before. He knew the tune, but he didn't know the words. When the Germans finished singing, their foes broke out in cheers. And rather than returning fire that night, they sang. They replied with their own English version. Silent night, holy night. When Christmas morning came, the soldiers actually came out of their trenches and they wished one another. The enemies became friends. They greeted each other with Merry Christmas. The Pope had actually called for a Christmas truce, but no one paid attention to him. It was the soldiers themselves that would pop out in different places and decided to do this all on their own. They exchanged gifts. All that they had, cigarettes, chocolates, whatever they had. Some even ended up playing soccer together before they went back to their foxholes, and hours later, back to war. There's just something about this night. But tonight could be the most significant Christmas Eve ever. See, the story of the baby isn't just this sweet story that we read once a year. It's not a fable or a legend. If it is, then you're on your own. But if you believe it, if you believe that God came down to earth as a baby for you, then this Christmas invitation is the greatest invitation you'll ever receive. You know, Christmas won't be great because of beautiful decorations at here or even at your house. It won't be great just because you kind of won the lottery and you don't have to sit by that family member tonight at dinner. Christmas won't be great because you got your kid a for real or a scruffalove. And if you haven't heard of those, be thankful. Christmas won't even be great if you get everything on your Christmas list. Christmas will only be great if you get what God did at Christmas. See, Jesus came into the world for you. For you. Now, you may be here tonight because your mom really wanted you to come, or your husband really wanted you to come. And you think that the Christmas story is absolutely irrelevant. But don't write it off. See, the God of the universe who made you with longings in your life. He made you to want more. And you'll only find it when you reconnect with him. That's Christmas. I hope you'll come back in January for a series that we're going to be starting called Reset, Getting the Life You've Always Wanted. It would be a great next step for you to begin to explore those deep longings in your life. But tonight can be the most important Christmas Eve ever. If you would simply take a step towards Jesus, to find him, to follow him, to give him your life. See, that's what happened at Christmas. Jesus took this giant leap out of heaven into your world so that you could take a step to him. Just a moment, we're going to light our candles and sing Silent Night. You may not know it, but it's the 200th anniversary of this most loved carol. You really can't do Christmas without Silent Night. But do you know the story behind Silent Night? Joseph Mohr was the priest of a church in Salzburg, Austria. And he served that church with Franz Gruber, the church's organist or musician. Christmas was coming and they were doing their Christmas planning, and Mohr and Gruber had this problem. See, the organ in their church wasn't working. In fact, they thought that mice had gotten into the organ chambers and chewed through the bellows of the organ. And they wanted this Christmas Eve to be special, and everyone expected that the organ would do that. It would be loud. It would be glorious. So Moore, he wrote a poem. And then he asked Gruber if he would set it to music. You know, if they couldn't have that grand organ, at least they could provide this original carol for their congregation that would be accompanied with just a simple guitar. And that Christmas Eve, Silent Night, was played for the very first time. Months later, an organ repairman came to repair that organ, and he heard that carol, and he asked for a copy of it, and it began to spread everywhere, all around the world. That carol is really the apex of hundreds of thousands of worship services tonight. And it was written kind of as a workaround. They didn't have what they wanted, so they needed to find it. See, Jesus did the ultimate workaround for us when he came. Because we couldn't get to God on our own. Jesus had to come to us. You know, we're still on the same fragile earth that those astronauts photographed. And we're still in a world that is desperately in need of unbelievable and impossible truces. And that's why we have Christmas. See, Jesus came into your world, because he knew that he was the answer to every fear you have, every dream you have, every need you have. Jesus knew that when you find him, you find the life you've always wanted. So he came so you could find it. He came to give you this unbelievable and incomparable love. You know, he's not intimidated by you if you're a wise man. And he's not embarrassed by you if you're a shepherd. He knows you. He knows your brokenness. He knows your Achilles heel. He knows about your unmet potential. He knows what you worry about. He knows what keeps you up late at night. He knows your deepest disappointments, and he knows your greatest dreams. And he still came for you at Christmas. Christmas tonight is for you. Back in 2000, Peter Jennings, the ABC anchor, hosted this documentary called The Search for Jesus. And at the beginning, he read Luke 2 that Mark read earlier, and while he was reading it, he was watching a man in Bethlehem carve out of olive wood a piece of Jesus' head. His opening line shares the search that so many are on this Christmas Eve. Maybe it's you. This is what Peter Jennings said. He said, "Hello, I'm Peter Jennings, and we've been searching for Jesus. As reporters, that is, because it's an irresistible story. And whatever your faith or religion, there's simply no denying the extraordinary influence that Jesus has had, that he does have in people's lives. Tonight can be the most important Christmas Eve of your life. If you'll do the search, if you'll take a step to Jesus, if you'll do it tonight, I promise you, you will never regret it. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you tonight for Christmas. The Christmas that happened over 2,000 years ago, but is so important to us tonight. We thank you for making happen the event that divided history, that divided our calendars. We thank you for the event that changes lives. God, we're so grateful that you came down at Christmas. And now, God, we are bold to ask that you would move in our hearts. Would you make this the most significant Christmas Eve ever? God, I pray that everyone here would take a step towards Jesus. So everyone here could live the life that they were meant to live. They could live the life that they are longing to have. Do your work in us. Light of the world, Jesus, on this holy night. Amen.